whether it's justified or not, you know, whether there's any kind of like positive outcome from the end of it, it's different. But I think what's important is that you're saying, I know why I'm doing it. I'm not just doing this because I'm a zombie now and I'm just plugged into my phone and I'm not aware of what I'm doing. And I think that's probably where I have my biggest concern. So as a teacher, I'm teaching young people who have been born into a society that is just completely obsessed with social media. As in, from the minute that they're born, social media in some way or form impacts their life, whether it's because their parents, who maybe might be similar age to myself, have the camera in their face from the minute they've come out of the womb, just like, hey, like, welcome to the world, everyone, see my baby here.
Yeah.
You get it, it's unavoidable for them. And so when they get to the point where they themselves have access to, you know, the internet and to gadgets that have access to the internet, which is very young, by the way, as in like 2-year-olds now can operate a phone or an iPad better than I can.
Yeah, my son was doing that.
What I'm seeing now as a teacher is young people who are incredibly addicted. If I could look up the definition for addiction, I'm sure it definitely it defines what I see in my classroom a lot. As in, if you take away the iPad from a child, he is having the biggest meltdown. Some of the issues that he's having, that's, you know, the reason why he hates home and the reason why he hates his mum is because his mum told him he had to get off the PlayStation at 10 o'clock at night. And you're like, bro, like, I didn't even have the PlayStation at that time. Like, you know, I was suffering with Dreamcast, and even then there was kind of boundaries that were set around the weekend. So like their whole life already is just kind of like immersed in the internet, social media, like, and I think my biggest concern is, one, there's the safeguarding aspect of it, in that they themselves don't understand what safeguarding is, and it's not really their responsibility, it's the responsibility of their parents. But then their parents, some of them are quite a bit older than us, and some of them are around our age. They haven't necessarily been educated, I don't think, to safeguard their children on the internet. So I'm seeing a lot of cases where, you know, a child will come in and we're having breakfast and he'll talk about this person that he's speaking to on his game. And by the end of that conversation, you're like, I think you might be speaking to some old guy. And some of the children are like kind of shrewd enough to be like, yo, like, but where did he add you from? And like, are you sure that's really, you know, who you think you're talking to? And this child will be like, no, that's my friend. I've had them for 2 or 3 weeks. Like,
yeah.
And then, you know, before you know it, I'm having to write safeguarding forms, but it's happening so often that I think that's it just reminds me, it's such a big difference from how we were like, not how we were raised, but like what we were born into. We were kind of born into it, and we kind of like had the slow progression of the internet, and, you know, it wasn't so much in our faces. We could use it, we might not use it. If you had access to a phone, it's more so because your mum or dad wanted to give you a phone or because they could afford it, whatever. Where it's now, it's almost like it's a given. Yeah. You're going to have some access to an iPad, to a Mac, to a phone, to some kind of screen, and parents use it as a way to kind of distract their child. But then I've also seen parents themselves completely like neglect their child because they're just so immersed on whatever they're doing on their phone, to the point where they're walking with their child outside of the school and they're like almost walking into cars that are driving into the gates because they've got phones in their hands, and I don't know who they're messaging or texting, but it's clearly more important than looking out
for your child's safety. Yeah.
So it's just like, in many different ways, I've seen how it's kind of like really negatively impacted not just the younger generation, but also like our generation. And although I see the positives of it, I think the one thing that's missing is like education around how we can, one, safeguard the young people, but then I think also, two, how we can kind of like do what you're doing in that sense and be conscious of like why we use it, how we use it, and also have a tool or have strategies to kind of like help yourself not kind of get bogged down in the negative things that come with social media. But I've got a feeling the way Ade's looking at me, he's like, nah, man.